Yeah, so this is the Unscripted podcast. I've got my good friend Dylan here. Um, Unscripted is basically a platform where conversation around like real, authentic topics take place. You have other platforms that provide the comedy, entertainment, and some with garbage as well, nonsense. So we do obviously have fun with what we talk about and stuff, but the main idea of creating this platform, like we've been doing since August, is just to create a space where like real relatable conversations can take place. Because I think in the culture that and world we live in, that's very scarce. Yeah, but just as the title kind of signifies, it's unscripted. So of course there is order, but we tend to not always follow the strict regime, whether it's like how the episode even goes or topics and stuff like that. So yeah, that's pretty much it. And today we got a special guest on for those who are listening or watching. Again, my bro Dylan. Yeah, you can introduce yourself, brother.
Well, thank you so much for having me. And yes, I'll talk a bit about my background, my family, where I come from, and some of the interesting things and experiences that I've had over the last year and the last couple of months. So for those who don't know me, so my name is Dylan Kawende. I'm the British-born son of Congolese Rwandan refugees who fled the genocide in 1994. And my parents, they're really inspiring individuals who were forged on the anvil of adversity. And from a very young age, they instilled into me really important values of resilience and ambition. My dad, who previously had to turn down an offer to study electronic engineering at Cambridge University because he couldn't afford the fees. He, always encouraged me to read widely. He'd read to me before going to sleep as a kid, and he also ran his own charity, which taught non-natives IT skills. And his example and this his endeavors instilled into me a desire to pursue a career that had a moral purpose. And then you have my mum, who motivated me to develop my Christian faith. She would take me to church ever since I was little, and I still go on a regular basis. And I have a lot of love for my church. And yeah, my mum, she's always been very inspiring, very comforting, and she's had to endure a lot of adversities. I should also add that my mum's side of the families suffered the most during the genocide. They were caught in the crossfire between the Hutus and the Tutsis, and were brutally murdered in an arson attack in June of 1994. So my parents then, after this dark period, they moved over to the UK, and this was 2 years before I was born, 2 years and 1 month. And yeah, so we started out as a family somewhere in South London. I think it was Battersea. Was I born by that point? I don't think I was. But I've spent most of my time on Harrow Road in West London. And I attended Westminster Academy, which is a very ambitious state school, state academy, that encouraged its students to look beyond its limited resources. And I give a lot of credit to the school because it really did inspire its students to work hard, to have confidence. But even in that environment, I encountered many individuals, quite a few individuals, who still adopted a very old-fashioned view of the kinds of people that succeed in British society. And so I was told by quite a few individuals, teachers and students alike, that I wasn't fit for Oxbridge. both in implicit and explicit terms. So sometimes it wasn't always apparent what they meant, but you could kind of
Read
um,
the lines.
read between the lines. And then there was actually like at least 2 or 3 times where I was told, look, Oxford, Cambridge, or UCL, somewhere like that. Those universities, you know, they require a particular type of person. And so, yeah, I mean, I could have let those words cripple me, but I come from a very resilient family, as one can tell from my story so far. And you know, I started attending church from a very young age, and that church, that message of empowerment was reinforced. And so, you know, I didn't listen to those naysayers, and I'm the first in my family to attend Cambridge University, the first to attend a Russell Group University, and yeah, so that has been the story of my life. I could talk about my crowdfunding campaign, which is
Oh, definitely. We're gonna get to that. Definitely.
yeah, but yeah, I'll leave it for later. If yeah,
Yeah. No, that's so cool. I mean, just the we're gonna get to the later. I personally want to just jump into straight away. If those who are watching, listening, who don't know, Dylan is in has been recognized, you know, for doing something massive. Um, but backtracking a little bit because again, it's unscripted, so sometimes jumping from A to B. Before we get, you know, to the main, if I can say the main event, how has this lockdown period or this climate, you know, been for you personally? How has it been with you personally? How's that been?
well, I think that it has been a challenge without a doubt. It's that there's been a lot of despair,
Mm-hmm.
and I think much of that is, I'd say, justified, um, but only insofar as, you know, that's the natural inclination.
Yeah.
It's natural to feel desperate in periods of crisis.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, I've developed all kinds of coping strategies to deal with periods like this. Um, and so, you know, I could talk about that in quite a bit of detail, but um, I should add a bit more on the point about despair. I think, you know, you have the pandemic, which is obviously a health
Mm-hmm.
issue, and then you have the anti-racism protests
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
that swept across the globe. So it started out in the US, and then it became a global phenomenon.
Mm-hmm.
And we've had periods like this in the past, but I feel like on this occasion, things were a bit different. I think people are much more organized. I mean, you do still have that small faction of people who resort to violence, and I will always condemn individuals like that because I don't think violence is ever um, ever justified, even though the anger that
Mm-hmm.
fuels the violence is obviously justified and legitimate. Um, but yeah, I feel like on this occasion, people have been, especially people in my network, have been very vocal about how to address this issue in a multifaceted way. So it's not just about protesting. Protesting is important, but you need to think about long-term strategies. So getting more diverse individuals on in the boardroom, having more diversity in law, and just in professions in general. How we address issues of access in higher education. So a lot of it, you know, does stem around a lot of the solutions that have been brainstormed and suggested have been more targeted at, you know, education and economic empowerment, because a lot of these such social justice issues stem from a lack of education and economic um,
Mm-hmm.
uh, status. And so, yeah, I think personally, it was hard for me when I heard about the George Floyd case. Um,
Very hard. I mean, to this day, I still haven't watched the video because I told myself that I sort of think a still image on Instagram, but I told myself if I
Yeah,
watch the video, I'll probably break down, honestly.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it took me a few days before I actually watched the video in full. So I obviously read the article read various articles that came out as soon as the news surfaced. So I knew what the context was, but it did take me a few days to actually mustered the courage to watch it, and it was very hard for me. It was very hard for any human being, really. And I think part of the reason why it gains so much attention is because people um, who are genuine and care about these issues, you know, it hurt us to the core. It offended us on a very um, at a very fundamental level, and it especially hurt me as a black man because it it was a sad reminder that there are still people in positions of power
Mm.
who abuse their authority, and they target you know, they seem perfectly okay targeting um, specific groups in society. And so while I'm optimistic and I believe that the movement towards equality, racial diversity, um, is, you know, that we're making improvements and that we're progressing, uh, it's still quite a visceral experience, and it's a hard one. And so, yeah, I guess I've used this lockdown as a period to self-reflect and to
Mm.
think very carefully about how my personal goals and ambitions will serve a collective purpose of
Mm.
positive social change. And my crowdfunding campaign, which we'll explore in a bit, um, was partly successful because uh, was successful in part due to these reignited conversations around equality and racial equality and you know, just improving justice for all.
100%. Yeah, I think especially with you know the COVID-19, the disease, putting everything at a halt. Um, I feel like the voice of social injustice was at its loudest, or hasn't been this loud for a long time. And
Yeah,
in a way, I don't want to say COVID was a good thing that happened. It's not, because of how many people who have lost family members, friends, etc., etc. But it's given, it's eliminated a lot of distractions for everyone, or for most people at least, to focus on this ongoing issue that's just been swept under the rug
yeah,
continually, over again and again and again. And I personally think that um, just after all of this, because I think it's good to react to certain things because we're humans, we naturally react to different kind of scenarios and things that happen to us, but is now to really take action. And I think just even personally, it's easy to look at the grand scheme of things and think, oh, what can I do, or etc. etc. But we need to kind of look in our own communities, our own households, and start to reflect on how we can be part of the change. Because what I've been hearing as well from other people is that they don't want this to just be another rally of protests, and then the energy dies, or another rally of protests, and in our own community there is some discord, discrepancy, or uh, conflict with what we were kind of fighting for.
yeah,
In yeah.
yeah. No, I think you're absolutely right in that there is a tendency for movements like this to lose steam after they're no longer in the front of public consciousness. And so, and that's why I'm so happy with the fact that have seen people in positions of influence seize this moment to talk about how their projects and the initiatives that they've set up are already addressing these issues, and they're receiving much more um, attention and traction and support, the support that they need in order to continue the good work that they're doing. So I'm thinking, I'm thinking about people like a good friend of mine, Kenny Emathodon, who works with BBC in Need, and he's doing a lot of amazing things, and in particular, he's managed to set up a fund that's being matched by Stormzy, um, that addresses issues around an investment towards Black talent, and who knows whether he would have been able to do that had it not been um, for this period of crisis, and both of crisis and also of self-reflection. I feel like that the country and the world, in fact, has been forced to do some soul-searching on these issues, and so yeah, I'm really happy to see that we are going to see more progress than we already have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. And now let's, get into your part,
Yeah.
your part, your story, on the grand scale of things, from the beginning of your crowdfunding. How does your story, over the past year even play into the topic we just spoke about,
Yeah, so let me give everyone a bit of context. So I was offered to study senior status law at Cambridge University, which is essentially their accelerated law program for individuals who already hold uh, a degree in another discipline, a first degree in another discipline. So I did my first degree at UCL for 3 years. I graduated last summer, and so I was given my offer from Cambridge in the middle of my third year, so like December 2018, January 2019. And I knew right from the start that I wouldn't be able to afford the fees using traditional methods like student finance, because for whatever reason, student finance doesn't recognize law conversion courses, and it doesn't provide student loans for law conversion courses. And there weren't that many scholarships available at the time. So I knew that I would have to do a combination of things. I'd have to do a few paid internships. I'd have to apply for a few scholarships, but crowdfunding would be a necessary component if I was going to meet the huge financial demands that Cambridge required. So I had to raise £60,000, or else my offer would be withdrawn. And so when I first launched the campaign in June of 2019, I got a lot of support and attention from the media. So I was featured in the Times, Legal Cheek. I had an interview with BBC Radio 5 Live, and it was on track to do really well. But then I hit a wall in that I was personally battling a lot of self-doubt, and I had people, a lot of anonymous individuals reaching out to me and saying all kinds of horrible things. And I tend to be very strong-minded, and part of the reason why,
I assume.
yeah, part of the reason why I had the audacity to launch this campaign is because I felt like I could achieve it. But even still, like, I had to wrestle with that self-doubt and
Human.
Sorry?
We're human, so definitely, yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. And so, I raised a substantial amount, around 30,000 if you include the offline donations and bursaries that I secured. But that wasn't enough. And I think part of the reason why is because I did lose steam as we were approaching towards the July deadline, and but fortunately, I was able to negotiate with Cambridge and defer entry. And so I decided that when I would relaunch again, I would focus exclusively on the positive support that I was getting, because I was getting an overwhelming amount of positive support. And the first time round, I didn't appreciate that enough. I had support from friends, from family, from people in church, um, and the press. And so, yeah, I think it was really important for me to go through that period last summer of introspection and really understand what it was that didn't go so well. And it was really just the lack of um the lack of hmm, maybe not, no, maybe that's the wrong phrasing. The thing that went wrong was the fact that I was paying too much attention to some of the criticisms that I was getting. And lots of these people were just trolls. Some of them were well-meaning people who felt like I should have taken an alternative route. Maybe I should have taken a few years out, worked, and then reapplied. And for these individuals, I think it was actually harder dealing with them because
Mm.
uh, it's like they clearly didn't understand what this meant for me. Telling someone that they need
Those
to take a
closest
few
to
years
you, I'm
out.
sure as well, right? Because it's those closest to you, right?
Sorry?
Those closest to you.
Oh yeah, yeah. So I'd say that there were only a few people who close to me who I had problems with during the campaign. Again, the vast majority were very supportive. But yeah, you're right in that it was a combination of people who who I thought believed in me, and people who I didn't know personally, um, but I either respected or admired, um, and they just felt like I should do something else, and didn't really see the value in me pursuing this path and forging my own path. And yeah, that was difficult. And I think for these individuals, that the best approach um, that I came to understand um, as being the best approach was, and still is, you know, being empathetic, being compassionate, and just really just seeking to understand before trying to be understood. So if this individual is trying to provide constructive advice, pay attention. You don't have to agree with everything, um, but never lose your calm, never lose your cool. That's something else that happened on some occasions. Like I let my emotions just run wild, and social media it tends to amplify um, your emotions in ways that you can't even begin to comprehend, um, and tone gets lost so easily on social media. And so yeah, I became a lot more sophisticated in how I dealt with people who didn't quite get what I was doing. And just to clarify a few things, and why it was so difficult for me to deal with those kinds of criticisms was because a few facts. So £60,000 is twice the median salary, the average median salary of someone working in the UK. And so I would have had to work at least 2 or 3 years at a high paying company, save every single penny, and that's practically impossible because I would have had living expenses to deal with. Um, and I could provide all kinds of facts that complicate the idea that I could have just taken a year out or a few years out, and the idea that a company, for example, would be happy with me working for them for a year or 2 years, uh, and profit from being a part of the company only to then jump ship and become a barrister. Most of these like top law firms or top companies in general, they expect a return on investment. So if they're going to train you for a year or 2 years in the graduate recruitment program, they want you to stay on. And so it just wasn't practical. And there aren't any internships that pay that substantial amount of money that you need in order to pursue a postgraduate degree. So yeah, it was really challenging, I think, having to communicate that, and it became quite exhausting at times because I felt like I was repeating myself, and yeah, it's not nice. It's not nice at all. But as I said, I think you do need to be patient. You need to be compassionate, and you need to remember what your end goal is. So when I relaunched again this year, um, in like May, that's when I was really reaching out to people on social media. Um, I changed tact almost completely. I was much more focused on the positive support. I was focused on the ambition and the positivity, and that was it. You know, I had a few hecklers here and there, like Legal Cheek. If if people go on my Legal Cheek article, they'll see a whole raft of, and Legal Cheek is known for being like this. It's a bit like the Sun, in that it's it's very gossipy and people just talk absolute rubbish. But yeah, you'll see a whole raft. I haven't actually looked at the comments, but you'll see a whole raft. I've been told by others, you're like, Dylan, why are these people saying all these things? Yeah, but I've been told, a whole raft of comments, people criticizing me and all that.
Yeah.
But I haven't paid any attention to that, and I've been at peace, right? And I was able to raise way over 60,000. I've raised over 70,000, and that's not even including some of the scholarships that I gained. And so, I think my campaign sheds light on a few things. It sheds light on inequality of access to higher education. But even wider than that, there are issues around racism. There are issues around systemic and structural inequality and racism, and how it's not just one individual who's responsible for this issue, but how it's a collective. It's a collective policies and actions that stop individuals like myself from attaining a higher quality of life, right? That there's still very much an Oxbridge bias at the bar. Most barristers come from Oxbridge, and I personally don't like that. But if I want to be a barrister, a successful barrister, I'm going to try and give myself the best shot, and I'm not responsible for things being that way. But part of the reason why I'm so keen to study at Cambridge is because I want to demystify what it means, not just to be a Cambridge student, but what it means to be a successful lawyer. And part of that will be reversing some of the stereotypes and debunking some of those myths. But yeah, it's been an amazing experience. I was really, really lucky and blessed to be featured in The Guardian, Metro, BBC again, but this time with BBC Radio London. And it's just been fantastic because I've been able to connect with all kinds of fascinating individuals. I'm in the process now of actually setting up a foundation that targets Black individuals who are pursuing a postgraduate degree and have leadership potential. And I wouldn't have been able to be in this position had I not had this experience of crowdfunding. And the person that I'm setting this foundation up with, he was the person that contributed the most to, he provided the highest private donation to my campaign. And it just goes to show that there are individuals out there who want to address these issues. You just need to be bold. You need to be strategic. You need to be innovative and not lose heart. Don't ever lose heart. If what you're doing is noble, then keep at it.
Yeah. How important, looking back now, because you've kind of got over you've got over the hill now. How important, looking back now, were those moments where your back was against the wall? You were in a dark tunnel. How important was it to keep going? Like, how important, looking back?
Yeah, no, I think it was absolutely important for me to be tenacious to use those moments where things weren't going my way as an opportunity to reflect, um, and to remind myself why this was so important to me.
Mm.
And um, often negativity, like negative people, um, like the, let me see if I can phrase this right. So the emergence of negativity and haters
Mm.
signals that you're doing something right. It signals that you've tapped into something that people are not comfortable
Uh-huh.
addressing, because it offends their worldview, and often that worldview is obsolete, is it serves no function, or at least it serves no positive function, and its purpose is only to diminish and oppress, um, and so yeah, I think it was really important for me to view it that way, rather than start doubting myself and doubting my potential and doubting my credentials. um, and it's also made the victory a lot sweeter, because it I'll value the benefits of this campaign, i.e., going to Cambridge and meeting all these incredible individuals. I'll value it a lot more because it took so much work getting here. Had it been an easy experience, I may not have been able to inspire as many people, and it probably wouldn't have felt as triumphant. And so yeah, that's the way I'd respond to that.
Yeah. I mean, imagine the people now, imagine the trail that, you're leaving now, for other people. I guess this initiative, is even bigger than yourself, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And it's funny because those those words, those were almost my exact words at the start of the campaign last year. This is bigger than me. And a few people took issue with that. It's like they felt like, oh, this guy thinks he's he's like a messiah, that he's that he's going to, that I don't know. Honestly, I actually have a hard time finding the vocabulary to capture how these people are feeling, because it's so contrary to the way I see things. Um, I think it's always your primary function in life is to serve others, and you don't need the official title of a leader, a pastor, a prime minister. You don't need those official titles in order to serve that function, right? And that's all, and that pretty much sums me up. I just want to serve. Of course, there are individual benefits, and it's scientifically documented that when you serve others, you feel better about yourself. Um, but I've been serving others even when it didn't bode well for me, and I think that's partly because of my Christianity, and fundamentally my Christianity. The idea is you bless your enemies, you serve those who seek to oppress you, and there's something magical and miraculous about that principle. But there are plenty of non-Christians who adopt the same mentality, and so I don't think we need to divide this up into sort of religious, non-religious, along religious, non-religious lines. But yeah, for me, without a doubt, my Christianity has been absolutely fundamental to all of this. To all of this, it's informed my decision making, it's informed my ambitions, and yeah, no, it's been an amazing experience.
Yeah, I can only imagine, especially your family. They must be elated. I mean,
Yeah, yeah. My parents, my sisters, my brother, they watched this entire campaign, always rooting for me. They saw the struggle. They were always encouraging, and so yeah, to have been able to achieve the objectives that this campaign sets out to achieve has been a blessing for all of us, because I've always made sure to give credit to my family for giving me the courage and for just being there to hear me out, to hear me rant, to hear me complain, and because that's important, right? You need a safe space. You need people who you can just talk, just vent, and so yeah, they've been amazing in that regard. Um, and yeah, we're looking to celebrate in a few weeks now that the lockdown has.
I was actually just about to ask because you definitely need to celebrate.
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. It's been a busy few weeks because I've had so many people reach out to me, and whether that be the media, but also individuals looking to set up their own GoFundMe's for their own projects, and it's been fantastic. But I've also had to take some time out and just rest and
Yeah,
uh, enjoy enjoy the victory
yeah,
and savor it. Yeah.
yeah. Although it's the start of a new journey, another chapter.
It is, yeah, no, that it's going to be a very adventurous time because I'm not just going to Cambridge to study law. Um, that's obviously the primary motivation, primary goal, but there's going to be lots to do. I've mentioned the foundation that I'm going to be setting up. There's plenty of stuff that I want to do on YouTube because I feel like it's a free resource, and I want to bridge that gap, that knowledge gap that exists between the privileged and the less privileged. And I want to sort of open up the doors of Cambridge as wide as I can, because it's not just about Cambridge. Cambridge is really just a
Institution.
it's just an institution, but it symbolizes something more. It symbolizes elitism, it symbolizes privilege, and I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with being a top tier university,
Mm-hmm.
and being viewed that way, and for that perception to be so ingrained in so many people. It's ingrained in British culture, right? We view Oxford, Cambridge in particular, those two universities, as being like the golden path. It's partly justified, partly not. A lot of it is just a proxy for privilege in the kind of bad sense.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no. So I'm really keen to address these issues and to have to continue this conversation because it hasn't stopped.
Yeah,
There's still much to do, a lot of work to do.
yeah, definitely. I mean, your your story, man, is inspiring everyone. Me as well, man. I'm telling you, it's inspiring a lot of people, and it's that kind of mentality and that kind of giving spirit, should I say, that is quite rare nowadays. But it's so valuable. And wow, I think definitely anyone and everyone following your story, especially those who maybe not doubted you, but um, they were probably inadvertently looking at you and to see how you would do, and that would kind of dictate on could they believe in themselves.
Yeah.
Definitely, I'm 100% sure have just been positively affected on a massive scale by this. And I think even greater is what's to come. I think this is just definitely this is probably not even scratching the surface. What's to come, and yeah, definitely as you keep climbing the mountain, it's gonna achieve greater things, man. That's what I'm definitely assured of.
No, I really appreciate that. It's very encouraging coming from you. And yeah, no, I'm looking forward to the future and the next phase because there's going to be a lot of conversations to be had, a lot of meetings to attend, and lots of long hours reading, studying, really developing my voice, so that I can engage with these issues on all sides because these are complex issues, and then there is no quick fix solution.
No, unfortunately,
Yeah.
no. All right. Well, we've come to the end of this episode here. For those, well, this is going to be on Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube, most likely the beginning of next week. Um, if you're up for it, it'll be so cool. Like when the other two co-hosts come on to. Hopefully it's in person as well, everything easing down.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
Renee, one of the other co-hosts, she actually went to Cambridge and Harvard as well.
Ah,
And
yes, I know Renee. Yes,
oh, you
very
know,
inspired by her.
okay, perfect. So that's already setting up part two, definitely.
Yeah, I'd love to continue the conversation. That'd be great.
100%. Okay, cool. Definitely looking forward to that.